Hey everyone, welcome to your Enneagram Coach, the podcast. I'm Beth McCord, your Enneagram Coach. And we're right in the middle of a really cool series where I'm interviewing 3 moms of the same type so that we get to really hear, understand, and learn from them and what it's like to be a mom from their Enneagram type. This is a place where there's no judgment, no shame, just who has God created you to be? And what have you learned with all of the ups and downs of motherhood for your Enneagram type? Now, we're doing this series because my new book is releasing July 9th, and it's Enneagram for Moms. And I can't wait for you guys to get a hold of this book. You're going to learn so much about your Enneagram type, your relationship with your kids, and how to become a healthy parent and the ripple effects that that's going to have on your family and community at large. And if you pre-order the book before July 9th by going to enneagramformoms.com, you're going to be able to get exclusive bonuses that you're not going to want to miss out on how to help you be the parent that I know you desire to be. So go to enneagramformoms.com to get your book and to get those pre-order bonuses, but also jump in and become a part of our book launch group. We are going to have a lot of fun and learn so many things together. Okay, so with all that being said, let's dive into today's episode where I get to talk to 3 Type 5 moms and hear all of the highs and the lows of being a Type 5 mom. All right, so here we are with 3 Type 5 moms. And I'm so excited about this one because I get a lot of questions about what's it like being a Type 5 mom. I know as a Type 9, it's exhausting. And so I think a lot of people, because 9s get overwhelmed and we like peace and quiet, and no kids are peaceful and quiet, right? Like they're just not made that way. And so a lot of people wonder how 9s are moms. And so we have a podcast episode on 3 moms that come together and talk about that. And it was funny because we talked about how we use either headphones or earbuds to kind of drown out some of the noise so that we're not so activated. But all that to be said, that was in the 9 podcast. But I think the same for 5s. You all can get drained pretty easily and need some time and space. And what does that look like? Because kids don't usually give us time and space. So I'm excited to dive in to really hear what it's like for you guys to be a mom, the highs and the lows and everything in between. But before we jump into that, I would love for everyone just to get to know you a little bit better. So let's start with you, Kristen. Why don't you introduce yourself? What are your passions, your family? What work do you do? And anything else that the audience would just love to know about you.
You said Kristen, right?
I did. What did it sound like?
I heard you say Chris, so I thought you were.
Oh,
I didn't know who you were talking to.
I know that's right. We've got a Chris and a Kristen.
So it's very close.
Kristen, why don't you start first because you're in my upper right-hand corner on the screen.
Hi, my name is Kristen Ye, and my husband Albert and I have been married for 24 years. We are the parents of 4 boys. Our oldest is Nathan, and he is a sophomore in college. Andrew is a senior in high school. Evan is a sophomore in high school, and then Kyle is a 7th grader. So we're in the throes of raising kids, sports, and all that goes along with that.
Yes.
My day job is I do accounting 2 days a week for a small business, and then I'm a certified Enneagram coach, and I have a company that I started called Thrive Enneagram Coaching, and I love to help women thrive in their God-given roles based on their identity in Christ.
I love that. And you also were mentioning like a new venture that you're getting into.
Yeah, this is really exciting. So 2 other YEC coaches and I have banded together and started a new company called Work Coach. And it's we're bringing the Enneagram to work and helping people thrive in their communication and in their conflict resolution styles in the workplace. So it's very exciting.
Like you won't be busy, right? I mean, every work environment needs that.
Well, whatever we bring, from home affects us in the workplace and vice versa.
That's right.
So
That's right.
It relates.
That sounds really exciting. All right. So Kristen, thank you so much. So Chris, let's move on to you.
Yes, I'm Chris Gordon. I've been married to Michael for 20 years. We met in seminary and we have three children. They are
Yeah.
18, 16, 13. So three teenagers, boy, girl, boy. And one, my oldest is finishing his first year of college at Western Kentucky University. And the other two are still here. And my day job, although it's strange because my husband travels a lot. And so I would say day job, but I work a lot at night when he's not here. So
Yeah,
my
sure.
any other time job when he's not
Yeah.
here is I'm the co-founder of At His Feet Studies with a therapist. So we write Bible studies basically for busy women who are that are accessible. I write a lot of commentary, and she's a licensed
Mm,
therapist who writes the questions to help you really get some meat and apply it to your life from the Bible. And that's I teach the Bible a lot around the country, and that's I'm passionate about women understanding the Bible and therefore knowing Jesus in a
mhm.
connected way. That's what gets me
Yeah,
really excited.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you. All right, Paige, what about you?
Hi, I'm Paige Severance, and my husband and I have 5 kids. We have a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, a twin 9-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And we've been together for 24 years. I am a certified Enneagram coach. However, I'm taking a little time off, trying a little bit of a new venture into remodeling houses. And so that's taking
Oh,
up a lot of my time, as well as being a full-time mom to 5 kids also takes up a lot of
yeah,
time. So that's where I am right now. Yeah.
absolutely. That's
Glad to be
awesome.
here.
Yeah, it's so good to have you guys here. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so I would just love to start out as a type 5, like one of the core weaknesses is feeling that too much interaction with others is going to lead to catastrophic depletion. Well, motherhood is just constant interaction with others. So tell me some of the highs and the lows of always being in the throes of little ones and constantly being needed, wanted, desired, all, upset at you, all the in betweens. What is that like as a type 5 mom? So anyone can jump in, we can kind of popcorn it around.
I remember thinking when my kids were little, I knew motherhood would be hard, but I think I didn't know anything, I didn't know enough about myself or the Enneagram to know why I was frustrated or why I was so
Yeah.
irritable. And I think as I've gotten older, now I can look back and go, "Oh, I just didn't have breaks." Like I was it
Mhm.
was exactly what you said. It was, they needed me all the time. And then my husband would come home and it was the same thing. And I was like,
Mm.
the end, I am
Yeah.
done, which of course hurt his feelings. So it was this sort of the snowball. It wasn't all negative, but for me on the inside, it was a snowball of like, why do I
Mhm.
just always want everyone to go away? And now I
Mhm.
understand.
Yeah.
Now that my kids
And I
are
bet
older. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's kind of it's a very ambivalent feeling, so feeling 2 things at one time. So on one
Yes.
side, I'm sure you're like, "I love my family," but then there's the exhaustion of it, especially as a 5 needing so much energy and resource reserves, and they're
Yes.
depleting it all. So there's this
Absolutely.
constant back and forth, right? Like, and that's
Yes.
how does that, and I'd love to hear from, all of you guys, like, how does that land on you internally? Is it guilt? Is it shame? Is it like what when you're feeling that, or maybe it's not, maybe it's just like, "Hey, it is what it is. I'm exhausted, like, I need some time alone." Like, there's no shame, there's no guilt, it just is what it is. So I'd just love to hear what that's like for you guys when that does come up.
I think now I'm okay with it and it doesn't land as guilt or shame. I think before
Mhm.
I knew the Enneagram and understood what was going on, I did feel guilty. I would be
Mm.
on all day long with little kids, and I was okay when I knew that I had to be their person. I
Yeah.
had to take care of them and I loved it. And then when my
Mhm.
husband got home, it was like, tag, you're it. I'm out of here. I need to go up to the bedroom and I need to just be alone for a little bit. And he was like, "You're home. I want to spend time with you." Um,
Yeah.
so it's working that out.
Yeah. But before you knew the Enneagram, a lot of raw emotions did come up during that time?
For sure, because he, I knew that it was my job to care for these little people that I loved, and
Mhm.
it was exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Paige, what about you? Like, so you've had 5 kids and a set of twins right there, kind of in the middle, kind of towards the end, but, what's it been like for you? And it would be also fun to kinda talk about spouses, but you've got a type 8 husband who, he loves to go and, like, do, and he does, and you join the adventure with him. So, tell me what it's been like for you as a mom.
Well, unfortunately, I did not find the Enneagram with you until my last was born. And boy, that would have made a huge difference if I had found it when my first was born. But honestly, I don't think
Mm.
I would have had 5 kids either. If I had known myself a little bit more, just to be honest, I think
Yeah,
I probably would have stopped at 2. So there's this kind of like, well, it's probably best that, things happen perfectly timed. But I do
right.
remember when my first was born, and my second was born. The first was the hardest. It was that initial shock of, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea what this was gonna require of me
Mhm.
personally and my strength and my emotions and all these things." And then when I had the first, of course, I had a traumatic birth and all of that played into it.
Mm.
But then I had a second, and the second was like, "Okay, I think I got it." But then I had twins, and nobody can prepare you for twins. Like, it's just it is. And I really just remember being you remember that Jim Gaffigan sketch where he's like
Yes.
it's like having a baby, like, where you're, like, holding 4 in the ocean and somebody throws you a 5th one? That's
Yeah.
exactly how I roll under, like, "Here we go. I'm just gonna die right now." It was so overwhelming, and so I do remember I think 5s are already a little disembodied, right? We're always in our
Mhm.
heads, and I felt this kind of numbness take over me because I was
Mm.
already disembodied, and now I felt just numb, like I was just
Mm.
kind of doing the thing, and I knew what was required of me, but I wasn't fully there, and I kinda regret those times. I wish I had known myself
Mm.
better to get the help I needed.
Yeah. Did you, Chris and Kristen, did you ever feel that way? Just kind of like even more disconnected from your body and just kind of barely just living through the day, kind of more in your mind? And what was that like?
Definitely. And it's interesting because I could be fully in the room and my mind would be in another world. I was there,
Mhm.
but I wasn't there emotionally with them
Mm.
when I got overwhelmed and when I got tired. So I can
What
definitely
was that
relate to that.
like then? Like, let's say you got overwhelmed and you've got a bunch of kids, around. As a f I know what it's like as a 9. I just check out. But that means the opposite. Like, my brain is just not happening. So, what was it like for you as a 5, when you got overwhelmed? You're there physically, but where is your mind going?
Yeah, my mind is going to other things that are not related to what's happening at the time.
Mm,
And being past focused, it's most often things, that had happened in the past. But yeah, it's a circling, a rumination in my mind that's
mm,
not connected to what's going
hmm.
on at the time.
And did you see any kind of result in your kids when that was happening? Like, did they poke and prod at you or try to get you to be more because you were saying that you're physically there, but you weren't maybe as emotionally present. Were they trying to get you more emotionally present or or not? I'm just kind of curious as how that would happen, with the kids there.
Yeah, I mean, when they were young, they would come over and they would give me a hug or they would, tap me or they'd say, "Mommy, mommy, mommy," and then I would come back.
Yeah, okay,
When
yeah.
they called, but there could have been a
Mhm.
time when it was a little bit checked out, which,
Yeah.
I understand
Oh,
now, but did not at the time.
it would be fun, like, to do a podcast with all the types of moms and talk about, okay, what was it like for all 9 types to be quote unquote checked out, right? Because I mean, we all get overwhelmed and like just to kind of go down and hear from each one. I might have to do that, like just have an episode with all 9 types and just kind of hear from each of them. So Chris, what about you? What was that kind of disconnecting from the head and the body when your kids were, predominantly little, but it could even be now?
Yeah, it's not nearly as much now, but so I call the years when my kids were really small the dark years because I honestly don't remember. Not dark as in
Uh,
sad, but I was so tired that I look
I
at
know.
pictures and my body is there. You know what I mean? Like I'm in the pictures and my
Mhm.
kids are like, "Hey, mama, remember when we blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "No, I got nothing." Like I just, it really was like I just survived. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I have two special needs kids. They didn't sleep very
Mm,
well, so it's like I just don't remember a lot of it. It was very much
mhm.
survival. And I know there are things I remember that were just delightful. And then there are just big swaths of time that just went away because I don't remember
Yeah,
them. I just don't. Yeah.
yeah. So, one thing that I know for 5s, they tend to want to have all of the information and the knowledge to feel prepared to then move into whatever thing it is. What was it like before you had a kid? Like, what was the preparedness? What did that look like? And then, of course, you enter in motherhood and it's probably very different than what you learned. So, what did you do beforehand? And then, what was reality like?
So it's interesting because my mom was a midwife for 40 years, and I was actually training with her to become a midwife myself. So I was attending births and doing prenatals and postnatals, and I was very much in the birth world before
Mhm.
I even started having kids for about 5 years. So I felt like I didn't know it at the time, but I was preparing myself, maybe unconsciously, of like, oh, I know I'm going to be a mom and I need to know all the things.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, so I did feel like I was prepared because of that. But then like I said, I had my first baby was a traumatic birth, and that just threw me for a loop. No, I mean, I
Mm.
don't have to prepare for that. I don't know. So that was hard.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that would be really hard. Um, Chris, what about you?
I mean, of course, I read all the books because yes, I do want all the information. I read all the books. And I also sewed, this is so ridiculous to think about now, but I very patiently sewed ducks, like lots of little ducks that I cut out onto a bumper. You know how we used to have bumpers?
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
sewed them on. And it was like this all has to be done and everything has to be prepared because of what I know is coming. And
Yes.
then he was just a little bit early and was quiet for the first couple weeks. And I thought, oh, this is great. Like he just slept all the time because he should have been on the inside. And then he woke up one day and he literally cried for 3 months. And
Oh.
I just remember people coming over. It was kind of a haze. And someone would come to the door and I would literally just hand them the baby and walk away.
Mm,
So it was,
mm.
you can't, it was such sensory overload, all the screaming and the breastfeeding and someone's touching me all the time and all
Yeah.
that, that it was, I
Yeah.
mean, it's day and night, before and after.
Right. Right. Did you feel that when, especially when he was crying, and I'm assuming the feeling was, I've read all the books, nothing's working.
Yes.
Where did that put you? Like, what kind of state of mind?
I'm just thinking about this pediatrician that my husband and I, who both have master's degrees, okay? We're in there, we
Uh,
are in a room, our child is just screaming. There's a child next door, you can hear on the other side of the wall screaming. Pediatrician, she's probably in her 50s, great, like seasoned. She comes in, we're just distraught, right? Because we did read all the books. And she
uh-huh.
looks at us and she goes, "You both have college degrees, don't you?" And we go, "Yeah." And she goes, "Probably masters, right?" And we go, "Yeah." Like, why is she talking to me about this? This is our pediatrician. And she goes, "You hear that baby crying? His mom is a 17-year-old. You know what she does when he cries? She picks him up because why? Babies cry. You're not going to fix this problem with your degrees. I know you're used to fixing things, but this isn't how."
Man, what was that like to hear that?
It was actually so comforting because that's exactly what
Okay.
we thought. Like, we're used to, like, you learn the things, you put it to work, and it fixes the problem. And she just sort of cut
Yeah.
all that in half and said, "You know what? It's okay. Babies are gonna cry. You're not supposed to know
Yeah.
how to make it stop. You just gotta let them cry." And it was really kind of freeing for both of us. Boy,
Yeah.
did she have our number.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Kristen, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like you, Chris, I read all the books. And then after, our first was born, I dived into even more. And it was so comforting for me to dive into research mode, to learn. I loved hearing different perspectives. And it was helpful in a way. And yet it was not specific to my personality. And so a lot of the things didn't apply.
Yeah. Um, so let's see, Paige, I think you have the youngest, which is 7. What I'm curious is what is motherhood like for those that are having babies now, you know, with all of the social media and all of the, I mean, blog posts were kind of out. Did you guys feel like you had to keep researching and pulling information from the internet or social media, or was that not as much of a thing when your kids were born, maybe more of a thing right now?
Yeah, the social media thing really didn't apply to me until I had twins.
Hmm.
And then that was such a foreign, like, what do you do with two babies? So I really did lean into Instagram at that time and found twin moms and all the hashtags for twins and really connected there
Mm,
because I already had two small kids and didn't really have any other support where I was for becoming a twin mom. So
yeah.
social media was really a gift to me to have a
Mm.
little bit of a community online and see what people were doing. And I'm still friends with them online and I see their, 10 years later, see their twins and that's kind of cool.
That is awesome. That's great. Now, Chris and Kristen, was that at all thing? Because I know it wasn't for me when my kids were younger. Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
was not.
Nope.
I honestly, there's like, I hear like Paige, what you're saying, and you know, our daughter just had her first baby 2 months ago, and there's so much good that can come from all the information that's out there. And then there's also, you know, so much that can be really hard, you know, so much information like who do you listen to? And you've got opposing opinions and all this stuff. So I can see how it's, you know, it's a both and just really monitoring that. But I always am curious, you know, for, you know, type 5 moms that are kind of like getting into motherhood now and being inundated with so much information or the ability to get that amount of information, how that's either comforting or overwhelming or probably a mixture. What would you guys think if you were having children right now? What would it be like for you, do you think?
Just seems loud. I mean, that's how it seems to me, like, the whole social media in general. Sometimes I have to be on it for work, which is fine, like, I'm not morally opposed to it, but every time it comes on, I'm like, "Huh, so much, so much." I just kind of I watch a little and wanna shut it down, so I think that would probably have been my reaction is like, "That's enough."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it would have been hard, to see moms go, 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 go all the time with their kids because they had the energy to do that. And
Mhm.
we did things, but it wasn't at the pace, that
Yeah.
other moms necessarily were doing it.
Yeah.
Our outings were basically, usually planned and they had a purpose and we were going to go do something fun and still get home for nap time.
Yeah. Who's nap time? No, I'm just kidding. I know I was always up for the nap time.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, Paige, I'd love to like start with you because the last time we had you on a podcast, Chris was actually with us. And we were just talking about this before we hopped on air that y'all took quite an adventure, all 7 of you, in an RV. And you were literally doing it at the time. Like you were in a car because everyone else was in the RV. So walk us through that because we're all like amazed at here you are, a type 5 with 5 children and a type 8 husband, and you're literally living in the smallest quarters. What was that like and how did you get through it? What were the highs? What were the lows? What would you do different now? Like help us to understand like how this was like a thing.
Well, I will begin by saying that when my husband and I got married, I said, put it in my vows, I will never go in an RV out west. But that was his dream. And then COVID hit. It took a literal world pandemic for me to get in an RV. But when the world shut down, guess where my kids came? They came home. And
Yeah,
I was like,
right.
what am I gonna do with 5 kids? And I think looking back on it, honestly, Beth, I think I went to 7.
Yeah,
I think I went to
yeah.
7 and I was like freaking out. Like, what am I gonna do with 5 kids? At the time, my oldest was 9, 10. I don't know. The math was all running together. But she had just finished 5th grade. And so I had all these littles
Mhm.
and I'm like, now's the time. The world's shutting down. Let's go in that RV. And my husband said, you're not well. He's like, let's give it 6 weeks if you still think that. And so I don't know, 6 weeks was like May. And I'm like, I still think we should. So we started and got an RV. We fixed it up. It took 12 weeks to get it we had to modify it for 7 people.
Mhm.
And then we went on the road for 10 months after that, and, I can honestly say, okay, this is the thing, I'm marrying a type 8, and I ride his energy.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm like skis in his the wake of energy.
Yes.
I'm like, and, I think that's why it works.
Mhm.
And he's also been coached by you through the Enneagram, so he's very aware of my energy, and
Yes.
there's a lot of conversations and checking in and healthy communication about he might have a great idea, but where am I?
Yeah.
And it can be very far apart. So, the RV thing was amazing. I would
Mm.
absolutely do it again in a heartbeat, and I don't regret anything, but it probably was one of the hardest things. And I would say, like, what the Enneagram has taught me is we are not our number. And when
Mhm.
even things that don't feel good, we can let go of maybe the lies that our personality has told us that we are. And we
Yep.
can be like, maybe I can do this. And we can surprise ourselves. And I think that the whole RV thing was a surprise to myself.
Yeah. No, I love that because like our book More Than Your Number, and that's why we wrote it. You are more than your main type. We have lots of parts, lots of types within us that are operating, and when we're healthy, we integrate them in a very healthy way. So you're bringing in that 7 part of your heart and you're like, let's have fun. We can do this. And then the 8 part of your heart is like confident and like, yeah, I'm going to ride my husband's 8, energy wave and we can go do this. And then bringing in, probably preparedness of your 6. And then the 4 is like, yeah, but we can also, be connected with one another. And so we are more than what our type wants us to think, the strategies, just the strategies it has. And it's when we take the time to get out of just that shell of our main type. It's not that our main type is amazing. So when we're at our healthiest, it's going to shine really brightly. I bet I would love to actually first to hear when you were on that RV trip, as you were really enjoying it, what beautiful parts of the type 5 that you're healthiest did you bring into that space?
Curiosity. I was so curious everywhere we went. I'm like, there is something new to learn here. And so we did road schooling. Like road schooling is
Mhm.
just you learn that wherever you are. And boy, that's just like an open-ended book of like what do we have every time we arrive somewhere, New Orleans, the Grand Canyon, we were in Colorado learning how to ski. So every place was like curiosity. What can we learn? And I think that's where my type 5 really showed the brightest.
Yeah.
And then nature, being in nature was very soothing to my type 5 as well.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing. That's just so fun just to hear. I love that you mentioned we can do hard things that our types think that we can't do. That doesn't mean we should do them or have to do them, but not to let our type hold us back from, like you said, if you had known about the Enneagram, you may have only had 2 kids, but now you have these 5 beautiful children that you adore. And so I love that. Okay, so Chris and Kristen, what about your parenting have you done that you're like, wow, I have done some really big and hard things? I mean, really, you're in it right now with the age of kids you're in. But walk us through some of those things that now that you know the Enneagram, you can go, this is really hard for my type, but I can see how I'm also able to step into the healthy spots and kind of walk us through how you see that happening.
I have 2 so my children go boy, girl, boy, and both boys are on the autism spectrum,
Mm.
one biological, one adopted. And so both of them have really struggled in the public school system, as
Mm.
you can imagine. We moved into a district on purpose that we thought would be a great fit for them, and both of them have been really difficult. And so
Mhm.
I think I got to a place with both of them where I just felt like I was banging my head against the wall and thinking, this is not my area. I never wanted to be the classroom mom who brought the cupcakes or was at the school all the time, or you know what I mean? That wasn't I wanted to do other things with them, not that. And so, but I think that whole process was so difficult, but also as I learned more and more, I learned so many things, which like a 5 is going to learn all the things. So I
Yeah.
did all the research. I learned about, state law. I learned about the IDEA Act. I learned about special school districts and what my rights were and what my children's rights were, and what are all the all the resources in our city. And I I went from this feels so hard because they just don't fit into what I expected, and it's going to take a lot of time and resources that I feel like I don't have, and energy, which I never feel like I have, to now I have people who come to me because I know things about how to traverse the system, and I know
Mm.
where other things are and resources are in school. I mean, my son goes to a school specifically because they have an autism program, and I can tell you all
Oh,
about it, and I can tell you where the other ones are in the country. I can tell you
yeah.
I can tell you how to sue a school district if they don't give your child what they need, because we did and we won. So
Mm.
it's like we have been through all these things that were, yes, they were very, very taxing, but I also learned a whole lot. And now
Mhm.
I get to share all that stuff with other people and other moms,
Mhm.
which I didn't expect that
Yeah.
either. Yeah.
And I really appreciate that because I'll be honest, as a type 9, and Jeff will laugh at me when he hears this, I feel overwhelmed just hearing all the things that you have learned.
Yeah.
But that also is super comforting, like, that is such a gift because if my child had those, I would totally lean on someone like you who has that gifting, like that natural gift set of learning all the things. Cause I would probably just feel overwhelmed and maybe shut down or just kind of go along with the system when really I need to stand in the gap for my kids. And I want to, but I wouldn't know how to. And I wouldn't even know where to research. And I'd get overwhelmed and just kind of shut down, if that all makes sense.
Yes, totally makes
So I think that's beautiful how God creates us all differently to also work together and
right.
how you've done that. And like you said, even talking about it, you probably think, gosh, that seems like really tiring and exhausting. And it was.
Yeah.
And it's also beautiful and beneficial and amazing. So thank you for sharing that. That is really
I
so
also
fun.
like Paige having an 8 husband with a whole lot of energy and a huge justice streak. So use that for your kids. That's a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
help.
Well, because I was going to say, oh, wow. So you really brought that 8 justice in and the 6. But yeah, if you have a husband that's an 8, it's like, oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome. Kristen, what about you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can relate to that, Chris, about just learning about a lot of different things and then kind of being the go-to person, which I didn't really realize that that was unusual. I would find out in our community all that was happening, and I would know, where the fun events were, and other people were like, I had no idea. So I can
Mhm.
relate to that on a little bit different level. I think one of the hardest things was learning how to relate to my kids in a way
Mm.
that they received better. Like I have a very assertive son, a type 8 son. And, that energy that he brings into the room and brings into our conversations is great. And it was completely foreign to me. So I had to learn how to match that energy and
Mm.
feed off of it. And now I love it. I
Mm.
love bantering, with him back and forth because I've learned how to do it in a way that is fun. Um,
Mm.
so I've
Yeah.
had to do that with each of the kids in a different way,
Yeah.
but because their personalities are all so different. And none of them
Yeah.
are 5s. So they're all relating to the world in a very different way than I am.
Yeah. Wow. That's really interesting. Okay. So I would love to like talk about more of like what was really like if you were to meet a type 5 mom today who is going through the throes, she hasn't really learned much about the Enneagram or maybe hasn't explored, being a type 5. What would what advice would you give to her as she is navigating the tough waters of motherhood? Like feeling so ambivalent of I love these people and I want you to go away. So what would you say to a mom who's just learning and trying to understand herself better?
I would say that you have such a unique perspective and a gift to give to your children and your family. You can connect the dots between things that other people will never be able to connect. You
Mhm.
you can understand things and at a different level sometimes than other people do. And it's good and okay to get away to recharge. You do not need
Mhm.
to feel guilty about that.
What about you, Chris or Paige?
Yeah, I would say the same thing about it's okay to have boundaries, even with your children. It's okay for them to learn at a really young age. You don't have access to mom all the time whenever you weren't. I would have done that earlier. And I think also I would say that you're kind of similar to what Kristen said, but there are parts of your personality that, especially with children, your curiosity that Paige keeps mentioning and your love of learning and information is a gift to a child. And I remember in places that we would go that were new. Now they weren't the Great Canyon in New Orleans, but wherever we would go, there's always something to learn. You can learn about the trees or the city or the foods you're eating. And that's really, really fun with kids. And I would enjoy it and do it at a level that I just thought was normal, and then I would talk about it with other moms, and they'd be like, "Wait, you what?" I was like, "Oh, I mean, it was fun, you know?" And they're like, "No, that's not fun. That's maybe for your 8-year-old, you know?" But I think that it is a gift you can give your kids. Still,
Yes.
my kids will
Mhm.
say, "Hey," my 18-year-old will call me with facts that he learns because we still love to learn new things together, and I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing about being a 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Paige, what about you?
I loved what Chris said about having boundaries. I think that's really important early on. I have this little thing with my kids that I've taught them of like asking me, "Are you available?" And
Mm,
just that question can just be so respectful. Like, "Do you have time for me, mom?" And I
yeah.
love that. And my husband and I do that as well. Like, "Are you available?" Just so
Mhm.
that's a simple thing to incorporate in your family and with your kids. Um, Also, I think this echoes what Kristen said of just not feeling guilty for taking breaks, however that looks. And that, I mean, that can be in so many different ways. But for me, I remember after having twins, I would go to the gym just for the childcare.
Yeah,
And I would just
I did
in the
that
sauna.
too.
Mhm.
That's all I did. It wasn't, there's no bounce fat body. It was just to sit in the sauna.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing on it. And the childcare was included. So that 2 hours, sometimes I would do it in the morning and in the evening just to have a break. I think
Yep.
because there's such a lack of a village, for mothers now, we
Mhm.
have to get really creative. We have to get really creative and there should be no guilt or shame in that.
Yeah, and in fact, it's something for some types they really need to incorporate, like for the 5s and the 9s and some other types, and to not feel bad. Like as a 9, I would feel bad setting up boundaries because I'm not making them happy, and now I'm a terrible mom because now they're upset because they just wanna be with me. And I wish I could go back and just say, "It's okay, like, they'll be fine," but I did the same thing. I go to the workout facility, and that's where I would start my day. I'd work out a little bit, and then I'd take a shower and just kinda, like, slowly integrate into my day because they were being taken care of and having probably
Mhm.
more fun than what I was gonna be able to give them in that time frame, and then I was able to enter my day and it was beautiful, and I wasn't able to do that, for all the years, but the times that I was able to do that, I really felt so much more refreshed. And so I love that you brought that up. So the last thing I kinda wanted to talk about was the energy reserve inside. So for 5s, how I talk about it when I'm speaking, but I'd love for you to kind of correct or give different insights is that most people, like let's say like a cell phone, you plug it in at night and then you wake up and you unplug and it's got 100%. And the extroverts will just use an external battery and hang out with people and there they go, they're like recharged. And then the introverts are, by the end of the day, they're like, yeah, I need to kind of slow it down and kind of move, towards not doing as much. But 5s tend to feel like they wake up with about 25, 30, whatever interactive battery life for the entire day. And I try to help people understand that because if you only had 25% of your phone for the entire day, you are going to be very mindful of how you're using your phone. You're not just going to stream Netflix or listen to things all day long because it's going to be gone. And what I understand from a 5 is that the fear, even if you know it's logically not going to happen, the fear is that if the battery goes down to 0 and the phone literally turns off, I don't know if I can turn it back on again. And so I have to be very careful of reserving at least some energy so that I don't experience catastrophic depletion. And that's the interaction with others. So I would love to hear, as a mom that has that, how can significant others, spouses, your parents, friends, how can they help you? And then even your kids as they get older, how can they help you? How can they understand you better, come towards you? Like you were saying, Paige, are you available? What are some other ways that you've learned that really can help preserve your energy while also being fully mom?
I remember so I had twins and then I had a surprise pregnancy. So I had 3 babies in 2 years. And it was, I remember we would still try to do date night once a week. And so Chip, my husband, would come home and he would have a sitter lined up and everything would be fine. But I would get in the car and I was so drained. I couldn't speak sometimes for the first 45 minutes. Literally.
Yeah.
I was there. And you know what? There was no like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you talking to me? He did not take it personally at all because of you, Beth, and your work.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, because he understood, like, this is like 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and I've done like 14 hours of work already.
Yeah.
And here I am so done. And so it was like, the date wasn't about interacting. It was just for him to give me space. And he would like gently bring me out of my shell throughout the night. But it was like that first 45 minutes, it was silence.
Yeah. And that and I think, because when we were working together, it was the understanding of it that made all the difference. That he was able, because as an 8, that's just not the life he lives, right? Like he's go, go, go all the time. And so you have 5 kids, you juggle them, and then you go off and you juggle something else, until the body the body does shut down for them. But so it doesn't make sense to an 8, but he also is fiercely protective of you. And so when he was able to understand, oh, wait, this isn't a us thing or me thing, this is just what she needs, I could really see that shift in him, just to go, okay, so she needs some time to, re-energize. So it's basically, I tell people, it's like plugging your cell phone into a wall socket. So like for you, those first 45 minutes was just you plugging in so that you could literally have enough energy to talk maybe the rest of the date night or even being present in the evening. And for me, I always try to help families or coworkers or friends to ask the type 5, hey, where's your battery life at right now? Like, I would love to go to get ice cream, or I would love to hang out with the Smiths tonight, but where are you at? Like, if we're going to actually do that, what do you need to actually get to that place? Is that something you guys have incorporated even in your families in communicating with you and having them attuned to what your needs are? And if so, what's that been like? So, uh, Paige, you kind of said, Mom, are you available? Are there any other things that you guys have done?
I think we've planned for activities that need a lot of energy for earlier in the day. If you're going to have, something that I need to give a lot of energy to at night, then I need to plan ahead for that. And I need to have forewarning of that. And I need to take the time in the middle of the day, to get myself ready for that. That goes for activities that take a lot of physical energy, but also mental energy. Don't have a hard conversation with me at 10 p.m. It is not going to go well. Catch me first thing in the morning, and then I can be fully there, and present. So it's a lot of just finding out the time of the day that works well for us.
Yeah, that's good. What about you,
I
Chris?
think in addition,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paige.
I was gonna say, in addition to what Kristen said, when you're a large family, structure is really important too, like bedtimes and routine, because like Kristen said, you kind of need to know where that battery life is towards the end of the day and witching hour and then bedtime. And
Yeah.
so we incorporated a lot of routine and structure into our family that I think other types maybe may not need, but I did need.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. Chris, what about you?
I think before even the actual practical things, just I feel like I have said a lot to my husband and my friends and even my children. This, please don't take this personally. Please don't take
Mm,
this personally. Because sometimes they'll forget and they'll get
yes.
this look on their face where I'm like, I don't know that I can do that right now. Like, oh, is it me? Did I send you? Are you bored of
Yeah.
me or all that? And I'll just tell them, no, 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 no. This is all about me and my level of energy. Don't take it personally. And that I see their relief on their face.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a big thing, and then I think too, the structure is helpful, b and honestly, because of my youngest child, he needs 10 times the structure that I do because he's autistic
Mhm.
and has a low IQ, and he needs even more routine than I do, and so that is helpful that it just kinda sets our family on a trajectory
Yeah.
of that sort of routine, and that
Mm.
I it is very rare that I go to bed too late or that I all that kinda stuff, it's sort of baked in, you know? But and I
Mhm.
was thinking too when we were talking before about being a mom, you cannot as a 5, you cannot compare yourself to other moms. It's like
Yep.
lethal because you're just not gonna be like them. You're just
Yep.
not. But let me tell you, when you're doing vocab or like some crazy science project, you're gonna blow that thing out of the water. So like just pray for
Yes.
that.
Or go on an RV and do school wherever you're at.
That's
You're gonna
right, for
kill
10
it. You're
months.
gonna kill it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I did think of one last thing because Paige, I remember us talking about one time you were like, there's because you were this was when your kids were super little. And I think there was one in particular person, it might have been a type 2 that really wanted to come over and help you at like whenever, like just show up at your door. And you were like terrified that this person would do this. And you were like, I don't know what to do because that feels so like mean, but I really just can't have her show up. But it was just a real conundrum because you knew this person, this was the way they were trying to love you. And you're like, this is the opposite of what feels like love for me as a type 5. So,
Mhm.
can you guys just talk like a little bit about that of asking for help, people giving you help? What advice or insight can you give others? Because there are going to be, for these moms out there that are type 5s, there are going to be people that want to, inundate them with help or ideas or advice or all of these things. What is that like for a type 5? And what would be the best way for people to truly help or support a type 5 mom? Or, at least for what it was for you. So, Paige, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, that was a little bit surprising because, you would think that that would be what I would want as a mom is for people just to show up and to have a rotating door of help. But that felt so invasive of my privacy. Fives love privacy. And so for
Mhm.
somebody just to walk in that I didn't have a lot of trust in to care for my baby or to hold my baby felt kind of threatening in a way. And so I think I would have done so much better had I known myself and had the language to say, please just leave the food on the doorstep and go away. Like something like that. Like, make them a meal, leave it outside and, write me a card. And that would have been perfect. Yeah, because
Mhm.
it was a privacy thing of like needing to feel like I just needed my space. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris or Kristen, have you had these kinds of experiences? And it doesn't even have to be tied to motherhood. It could be just, any time of life, but people just really wanting to help, but it can actually feel like either the opposite or not helpful.
Yeah, I experienced that a lot. And my husband is a type 2, so he is a helper. He loves to help me. And his heart is so good in that. And oftentimes it might not feel like help. And so we have to work through that of when I want help and when I don't want help. So I just
Mhm.
encourage, people to ask a type 5, do you want some help right now? And then if they don't,
Mhm.
that's okay. Autonomy is a very high value for me, and I want to be able to do it myself if I can, and feel competent in that. And but yet have the freedom to ask for help when I need that and want that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
oftentimes receiving it when it's a good time to receive it.
sure. That's great. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I would say your cell phone illustration, if you it's like showing up on my doorstep is like saying is like sending me the Netflix video when my phone's at 3%. And you're like, you
Yeah.
gotta watch this right now. I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So planning and asking, like Kristen said, like just ask and I'll tell you, like, nope,
Mhm,
Yeah.
that doesn't work. But here's a time that could. I feel like
mhm,
I have not honestly met a lot of female fives. I feel like they're a little
Mm.
bit hard to find. And
Mhm.
so usually women are coming at you the way that they would want to be served, which totally makes
Absolutely.
sense. And so I have
Mhm.
learned to say, I bet that would feel really good to you. And I so appreciate you offering it to me. Here's what would feel good to me.
Yeah.
And then, they it's not so offensive because it can feel so brash, but then to say like, "Actually, I work kinda differently, and I love that you're offering help. Here's how you could
Yep.
give it to me." And just to
Yeah.
sort of
I
shift it.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think most moms are going to really appreciate, just that because you're affirming their heart.
Yes.
But you're also saying that is amazing, but what would help me? So I think that's really key. And like you were saying, letting people know, hey, don't take it personally. This is just a my energy thing, but I'm very open and honest. Where honestly, us nines, we're going to just kind of go along to get along. We may not be able to even know that we need those kind of boundaries and how to even share them. So for those that do know fives out there, you can ask, would this be helpful? Or when would this be helpful? How can I best serve you? And they're going to know and they're going to be able to tell you, which is a real game changer and really helpful. Well, guys, thank you so much for just being here because I'll be, fives, it's hard to kind of, like you said, find type five women. And then to get you all together at the same time, I'm like, this is amazing. It's a miracle. And fives are very private. And so thank you again for just showing up, being authentic, sharing with us because there's going to be a lot of type five moms. Okay. Well, maybe not a lot because there's rarely very few of you guys, but there will be type five moms listening and they're going to feel so encouraged and validated. But the people that know type five moms, they're going to understand a lot more how to truly love and care and support them. So thank you guys so much for showing up today.
Mhm. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank you,
us.
Beth.
Wow. Wasn't that so fun to hear from type 5 moms about their real authentic experiences to share vulnerably with us? Well, next week, we actually get to start our cohorts that we registered back in May and we get to start them. So I'm so excited because moms of the same Enneagram type are going to be in community together. Now, if that's something you're interested in for the next round that we do, let us know. Go to enneagramformoms.com and get notified about the next time we have cohorts open. But I can't wait to guide all of these 9 cohorts, but also to learn from them. Well, I hope that you enjoyed today's episode and learning from 3 type 5 moms. If you want to know more, please get my book, pre-order it, Enneagram for Moms, before July 9th so you can get tons of resources and bonuses. Thanks, guys, for showing up today. And next week, we get to do the same thing, but with 3 type 6 moms. I can't wait for you to hear from them as well. We'll see you then.